Calls, and really what this is years ago when I started first guiding up here, all of our clients were extreme skiers. No one would buy you a heli ski run if it wasn't just like pretty much the most insane pitch of your life. But over the years, what we realized was, almost everything we're doing is assessing from the top down. And this is really what you guys are doing more than anything. I mean, even your most aggro backcountry ski tour nowadays isn't exactly skiing down a skin track. Everyone's going out to more bold terrain, more blind terrain, more apex, high alpine, more difficult terrain. The level's high. And so what we were training in the early years was assessing from the bottom up. And all of a sudden we get to Alaska and it's just everything's from the top down, and the routes are big and the lines are big. And we just knew that if we didn't have some protocols, start developing some protocols more for this big world, that none of us were going to survive this. So we finally put our feet down. This was Doug Cummings and I and a couple others. We were just like, okay, if we're going to do the guiding here, we're going to own the protocols on what happens on how we load helicopters, where we land helicopters, and what we do in the mountains, assessing from the top down. And that's where this all really started to happen. So I'll just say this, guys, take advantage of technology and get trained up, but don't let it be something that gives you confidence in the mountains. Confidence is definitely a killer. It's all about listening to the mountains, and they'll tell you what you can do and what you can't do if you pay attention to. And that's what I'm going to tap into here tonight, is teaching you a little bit more about how to be in charge of your own destiny, using these pretty practical skills, pretty practical protocols to be able to move through the mountains and avoid it. And so you're either staying in the right place or the wrong place. And here's the deal. We're out running around these mountains. We have incredible equipment, airbags, rebreathers, transceivers. Really, guys, that stuff's just there for the worst case scenario. We hope to never have to use it. If you can avoid the slide or never get caught in a slide, that's what you want to do. Or if you can physically see where somebody ends up in the mountains in a slide, your odds are so much higher of saving that person. So this is the deal. We're at a super high level. Resorts with all this wild terrain. And nowadays in resorts, you can either trigger an avalanche or have one sent down on top of you, even on a groomed run. The technology has evolved our techniques so much that we're at a super high level. I mean, the weekend warrior's at a high level. How many days have you skied this year? Someone told me they've only skied, it was one of you guys. Yeah, it was you, that's right.
2 days? 2 years.
Yeah, once in 2 years. So the deal is this, it's pretty impressive that you can show up to Alaska and ski pretty damn good, ride pretty damn good. The level's high, the technique is there, the technology has evolved us. The level's impressive because the resorts have given us all this wild terrain, but basically protocols need to catch up to what's going on, the popularity, what we're being given, and we have some responsibility here. I mean, just so you know it, what we teach ourselves, what we expect of our partners, what we expect of ourselves, and what we teach our children, is the evolution of protocols. And you own more of this than you might think, because the more accidents that happen, the more deaths that happen in avalanches and in mountains and in resorts, we're basically compromising our own access. I mean, we're pretty lucky to have the access we have. Roads are getting built better than ever. Plowing is getting better than ever. They've got pullouts and giving you more access to the wilderness than ever before. But they're already starting to take it away. So the deal is this, all those gates and all those resorts and all those pullouts that give you access, and even in Colorado they're talking about not allowing access to the 14ers in the wintertime. I mean, this is your land and your property, but the reality is if we just keep throwing airbags and transceivers at all these deaths, that's not going to stop this trend. And the next 10 years of what you're going to see is going to be insane. I mean, there's going to be so many deaths in resorts and in side country, in back country, on highways, in parking lots, than we've ever seen before. We already are seeing it. And right now, it's just all about the snow pit, looking through magnifying glasses, tapping on things with your wrists and your elbows, and throwing a bunch of safety equipment on your back. So think about this. 90% of what you're doing out there is terrain management. You're either standing in the right place in the mountains or the wrong place. Because this is us. This is the guy, especially the guy that's out there. We're the guys that are kind of the target age group. The guys getting caught in avalanches more than ever. We've got all this stuff that makes us superhuman. We can go 0 to 80 miles an hour in like 5 seconds with a pair of skis. We can be on huge mountains in no time just by using a highway or a ski lift or a helicopter or a snowcat. We're we need these protocols to catch up to really what's going on. It's pretty darn impressive what we can do. And this is the level. Like, this is Mount Francis. I mean, go figure. This isn't about me and my descent. It's really talking about what's going on above you in the mountains nowadays. Like, the level is so high. It's not just you on a ski run where you pulled off on a pull-out on the highway. It's about really what's going on above you, who's above you, that sort of thing. So your level's high, but imagine all the high-level things that are going on above you that could trigger something down on the highway. So this is the exit onto the ramp of Francis. And you guys can check out the video too. But this is inbound skiing. This is Snowbird. And this slide, it comes right out of Mount Baldy. Here's the traverse. I mean, thousands of people by noon go across that traverse. That's avalanche terrain. That's real stuff. I mean, most people, they don't even think twice. They get on it and they just rip down the traverse. I mean, they're like, toes to heel. No separation between them. I mean, wouldn't it be like, hey, let's go 100 feet apart. Keep an eye on the guy behind you. It's protocol. Even though it's in a resort, it demands some protocol. And there's just super easy clues to tell why this is avalanche terrain. What's up with these trees? Why aren't there many trees? And trust me, if we were to ski down here and look at the back of any one of these trees that have big scars on the back, on the uphill side of them, they'd be smooth, and they'd have no branches facing the uphill. So you could be in charge of your own destiny because you can identify where things slide and where they don't slide. And I'll show you a bunch of that. But first things first, let me tap you into topography. Like, the 4 places that most people are getting killed in avalanches, the worst one is a concave. So where did this slide come from that ripped through here? It came from this concave. It came from the bowl. These are the places that allow snow to load, and these are the places where if something happens, you have nowhere to go. And it doesn't matter what you're wearing, airbag or transceiver or not. This is trauma stuff. This is asphyxiation stuff. This is real deal. It's not. You really can't take that ride. And it's like, a concave is like splitting an atom, right? So you get more energy than you ever thought possible. So think about where you want to be in the mountain. Would you much rather be on this apex? Or if you're skiing this, staying close to your apex, making a right turn to it, keeping your eye on the prize. This is right under the tram at Snowbird. Once again, a slight concave. I mean, we threw 9 bombs before this one kicked off. I mean, that's thousands of people are cruising down the traverse. This is the upper cirque, right? At Snowbird. I mean, really, where would you want to be, like, on this slope? Would you want to just be cutting this thing? Or would you rather be skiing this, kind of keeping your eye on the prize to the left? And I'm just going to say this. You're an apex skier. You're not going to be skiing in the low side of terrain. I want you to look at terrain differently from this point forward and ski up against your high terrain. Great skiers ski so great because they see so much more down the fall line. That's how they do it. It's not ability. It's because they pick lines and routes that give them the ability to see further down the fall line, put themselves in islands of safety, and how to control their speed instead of fighting gravity, skiing up against double fall lines and things like that. And so much of this translates right into safe zones and where you want to be in the mountains. So even on the most perfect day, I would say to myself up here, like, gosh, if this thing slides, I'm pulling into these trees in here. I'm pulling into the apex. There's a reason there's trees there. It's because it doesn't slide there much, if at all, right? And look at this. This is all trauma. It takes you down in the trees into a train track. So concave is like the big bowl, the couloir, the chute. It's a place where things just come together. It slides into a mass. It's the place where snow can fetch into it from the wind, right? The wind shears off of this ridge here, and the snow just falls out of the wind shear and fills in the low spots. So you can get a foot of snow, but the concave can end up with 4 feet of snow. 4 feet, 400 feet across equals 10 tons. 10 tons pulling on gravity. So just really start doing the math on it. Where would you want to be in the mountains in a place like this? Would you wait for your son right here? Or would you be waiting for your son way over here? Better yet, maybe you'd rather be here in case something happened, you could help him. But think about where you're at in the mountains. Try to pay attention to that. And here's what's going on. I mean, this is Snowbird. These guys are all hiking up to Baldy to go across that big traverse after a huge snowstorm. What clue in this photo tells you there's been some stuff that causes avalanches?
Cornice.
Yeah, see the wind action? Brand new, fresh cornice. So I'm just going to tap you into this this idea. Like, no one's got safety equipment, and no one's thinking twice about where they're going or what they're doing. But gosh, was it 2 years ago? California had 3 deaths before Christmas skiing bounds. So I mean, at Snowbird, when I had my Dean Cummings Big Mountain experience, I would teach at things as a patroller, so did the ski school. And I had an instructor once, actually the director of the ski school at the time. We don't need to teach the ski school any avalanche stuff. We've only had one barrel here, and that happened 14 years ago. That's exactly why you need to have this, because it happened, and it will happen. And sure enough, that same year, a girl gets killed right in bounds. Everyone needs this information. It's so important. Even your weekend warrior, the guys going skiing in Vail or A Basin or up here to Alaska, you can use this to become better, safer skiers. So here's the stats. Alaska was number 1 back when I first got into this, and what I did was I realized, man, my clients even want to learn. And it amazed me, this is like 97, 98 when I started getting more of that powder skier type instead of the extreme skier. I'd be like, hey, what do you guys want to do for a down day activity? You want to go skate skiing? You want to go fishing? You want to go do this? Or would you guys like to go learn how to dig a snow pit or go learn how to do a multi-burial scenario? 80% of the people would sign up to learn something. I said, wow, that's amazing. Why don't we start a non-for-profit in Alaska? We started this thing called the North American Outdoor Institute. And Alaska was number 1 for deaths and avalanches, which blew my mind because if you compare Alaska to like Colorado or Utah, there are way more people on an average day skiing on steep slopes. And I was like, wow, Alaskans have not much forecasting, not much education. And Alaskans go for it. So they need a little information. And it blew up. We went across the state, we would teach. We'd hit about 30,000 people a year with the various instructors, and really the big numbers were the schools. We would just do a full assembly at high schools, and that really blew some big numbers up. But you know what? It's helped. Now there's all these non-for-profit avalanche groups teaching avalanche education. It wasn't about starting a non-for-profit and being the owner of it and putting a feather in my cap by any means. It was just about like, wow, let's do this. Let's create more work on a year-round basis. The more we teach as guides, the more we learn. We start teaching the public more practical skills, more about terrain management, and start learning how to strike away on their own decisions on what they would be willing to do on a given day. And so it's changed. Alaska's number 2, and Colorado's number 1. I kind of think it's ridiculous. I think Alaska should definitely be somewhere in like the 5th or 8th mark. I mean, the number of people recreating on steep slopes in Alaska is nothing compared to Utah or Colorado. I mean, it's amazing that we have such a bad track record up here. So top-down visual verbal route selection with the ability to assess the snowpack on the go is the ticket. This means you got the buddy system going on. It means you can re-engage the gears every time to talk about concerns, risks, or hazards, or just a gut feeling. I don't know what it is, I just don't feel good about this line. Bill, why don't we cut out of here? It gives you the ability to rescue your buddy because it's a buddy system, the way we work with transceivers and probes and shovels, right? And it gives you the ability to assess the snowpack at different elevations, at different aspects as you work down the mountains. There's no way you could dig one single snow pit at the top of the starting zone and say the snow is the same all the way to the bottom. You have to dig a pit every 100 feet the whole way to truly say this stability proves itself within the snowpack. It's not realistic. But it is realistic that you have a safe zone to work from to dig hasty pits and to keep probing and checking the snow and do ski cuts and things like that. And you guys are learning a lot about that as you're working in the mountains with us. Challenging little slopes, and I'll talk about that more. So whatever you learn in this world, whatever course you have, wherever you go, all of this has to be able to become practical and you need to be able to use it on the go in the mountains. Otherwise, it's more just science and more just about rescue techniques. You're trying to avoid the rescue altogether. So, number 1 is you got to go in the mountains with this attitude. The best skiers in the world never come up to me and go, I want to go ski off pontoon or I want to go do this. The best skiers in the world come here like, Dean, I'm not looking for the biggest, steepest thing. I just want to go out there, get my feet under me, see how the snow is, see what's going on. You're like, copy that. And this is a Sage or a Seth Morrison or a Darren Rawls. These guys are really respectful. They have lots of fear for the mountains, and they respect it and understand it. And then I know damn well that these guys can do some pretty impressive stuff. And they just proved it to me right then and there. Wow, this guy has so much respect for the mountains, and I know he's a great skier. And I get him out there, and he's like, man, that snow pit didn't look very good. And I say, let's go back home. We're not going to ski today because it's not too good to me. And then when we go out and it's stable, that kid gets the most insane segment in the world. It's just so impressive. So here's the deal. Mountains always win. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're at in the mountains and what safety equipment you have. You just have to be looking at making your own forecast. And forecasts are based on a microclimate. One side of Squaw Valley could be one thing, the other side could be another. So you're just checking the snow and checking things out as you go. And this goes back to topography and looking at mountains three-dimensionally, putting topo lines on this. So why is this guy safe taking this picture? Where's he parked? They just stopped to take a photo, actually, of some goats that were up on the cliff here. And all of a sudden, this monster came flying down the mountain.
It's a river.
Yeah, it's a massive avalanche. I mean, that thing's huge. It would turn your car into a tin can, right? So if he parked in the wrong place, where would you want to park your car here, guys? What is this?
It's a river. It's a concave.
It's a concave. This is where power gets huge, right? Why is he safe where he's parked? Is he underneath a ridge system? Let's just say he's an apex highway driver. And he's right, man. If you're going to park your car, change your chains, or do something, or help somebody, yeah, you're going up Little Cottonwood Canyon. It's important to pay attention. You're like, wow, everything else is a starting zone and a chute all hitting the road. I'll park right underneath the ridge system. I'll go give this little lady a hand, push her car out. But I'm not putting the family at risk. I'm going to park them right here. So think about where you stand on a ski run. Why park under the big bowl if you can park under the ridge system that ends the bowl? So think about being under the apex or on the apex. It's a place where things part away from you or around you or dissipate away from you. So looking at the mountains three-dimensionally is great. So this is called Skate Park. This is probably about 2 miles across. This is probably about 4,000 vertical feet. Let's just say Mike's up there, he lands with you guys, and we just got 4 feet of new snow. So he's going to be like looking at apex skiing. He's going to be connecting the dots, right? Is the guy going to want to be dropping in right here in the middle of this gut or skiing this tube? If something happens, where do you go in this place? It's just going to get flushed. I mean, it's just that bad. Routes like this, getting up, connecting the dots, staying visual and verbal, going to your high point, staying up on the apex of things is what you're talking about. You get in the mountains and you start feeling the snow settling on you and seeing cracks shooting across the slope, you're going to be going back up onto the ridge system, back up onto the apex. And if you picked a good route, you got that. If you pick a bad route, you don't. You're just stuck on some massive big bowl. So think about the routes. So concave, convex, and I talked about this in the field with you guys. Convex is where the snow goes from like 20, 30, quickly 40 degrees. Gravity is pulling on that snow. Imagine 15 feet of snow, 100 yards across, on a 40-degree slope. How much weight is that really? It's actually moving. It's creeping as you stand on it. And if it's got a lot of elasticity in it, that's great. If it doesn't, and there's weak layers and there's tension, it's going to be a massive avalanche. So you approach these things identifying them and going, is this the right day or the wrong day for it? And then the other is an unsupported slope, like a slope hanging over a cliff. I mean, snow has the ability to stack on itself from the bottom up. It doesn't mean it doesn't slide, it does, but it has much more structural value than an unsupported slope. And then your fourth one is a train trap. I mean, would I want to be parked right down here where it goes steep to flat? I mean, if this whole thing went across here, it would fill that in a couple 100 feet deep. There's no surviving that. So dissipation slopes are amazing. So think about when you look at the mountains, put some lines on it. Put some topo lines on it. Everything that does a nice little V is your apex. Even if you're just looking at Topo Map or Google Earth, lay those topo lines on it. So there's times you go in the mountains and there's times you don't. And you have to be in charge of that. I mean, so basically, before you travel somewhere, or before you leave the house, you look out the window and make some calls to the hotline or call somebody you know at the resort that knows something about it. Because there's just times you shouldn't even go out there. And there's times when you should go out there with some rules on what you're willing to ski and how steep and how deep you're willing to go. So you got to be your own forecaster. It's got to be based on a microclimate. I mean, here we have incredible microclimates. It can snow 6 feet over here, and only 8 miles over here it only snowed 2 feet in the last storm. Or it could be blowing, 70 miles an hour through Thompson Pass and have no wind, just 2 miles over. I'd say a lot of the mountains in the Rockies and the West Coast have pretty massive microclimates. Every square, 10-mile square has got its own world, basically. This is in Silverton. I had 17 clients. This was like their first year, second year they opened. We showed up and you just walked in the snow and it was just like sugar. It was just like pouring sugar on the floor. It wouldn't support you. You could feel the rocks at the bottom. It felt like graphite between your gloves. And I'm like, wow, 16 inches of sugar and it's going to snow tonight. I woke up the next day. The clients are like, Dean, this is like 9 o'clock. We went up early. We skied like 2 runs. We didn't come all the way to Colorado to ski blades. We want to ski the stuff. Trust me on this one, guys. It is not the time to ski the stuff. Let's just keep skiing some powder through some blades and take it easy. And stability will tell you. It'll start talking to you. You'll start seeing avalanches. You'll see fracture lines out there, and you can start making calls on what you're willing to ski on a given day. So at 10 a.m., we get to the top of the lift. People were pretty bugged with me. I mean, trust me, there's no way